Welcome back. This is Salam Media and this is Mid Morning Talk with me, your host, Mariam Mia. And now I'm speaking, we're going to be reviewing a book that was my company over this weekend, and a good company it was that, yes, I had to delay certain my chores because I was so engrossed in reading this book. And for me, it was a very empowering book and a book that forced me, well, not forced me, encouraged me to reflect, to look at directions that I'm taking in life. What is my goals and also what is my intent? And yes, I'm speaking about the book Living with Intent, and it is authored by Umm'Umar, who is, Alhamdulillah, for her young, she's a hafida and a recently graduated medical doctor. And the emphasis is on recently graduated. Without giving away her age, I wanted to focus on that she's a young South African, a young Muslimah, but she's written such a dynamic book, a book filled with wisdom. And just to give you a little bit of context in this book, because that is where I'd like to begin, because sometimes they say often our best works come from, or best efforts come, it is a time that when we go through a period of challenge and then we discover more about ourselves, that allows us then to reach new heights. And I think with this book, Umar has proved this. So this is what the book says in its preface. In loving memory of our beautiful baby boy, our shining star, our first son, Umar, it is because of you that I've learned courage, strength, and patience, qualities of Umar radiallahu anhu. My beloved son, I can't wait to see you in Jannah. And may this book be a reminder to me, firstly, to be a better person so that I can try to gain the mercy of Allah and be able to join you in Jannah, inshallah. And reading that, I was touched, but I was inspired, because for me, that seemed to be the motivation for a dynamic. For me, it was an Islamic life coaching book that gave me direction in my life. So let's welcome author Umar, medical doctor, as well as Hafida. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to Mid Morning.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah so much for having me on the show.
So tell me, was what you said in your preface and your dedication, was that the motivation for writing the book, or did you have something at the back of your mind that you'd like to author an Islamic self-help, life coaching, directional book prior to this?
So initially, it didn't even start out as an idea for a book. I noticed that in our communities, we sometimes don't recognize mental health care in ourselves and in others. And I wanted to, by some platform, offer some more information regarding mental health conditions, because there's a lot that we need to remind ourselves of, and there's a lot that we need to learn about it. So I wanted to initially go to schools and present this topic to them, because obviously, from the outset, if we understand things, it will enable us to be more successful adults, and we'll become adults who are able to support others in their challenges. But then it was COVID and I wasn't able to do this. So I decided to keep it in writing. And as time went by, I realized there was so much more that I also wanted to remind myself and I wanted to remind others. And I kept on writing it down. And when it got to about 50 pages, I said perhaps it's going to be better in a book form. So I decided to format it as a book and add all the things that I thought might be beneficial to myself and others. And that's how it became the book that it is.
Mashallah. So during your journey in the book, as you've mentioned, you suffered a loss, a profound loss. Never easy for a parent to lose a child, to bury a child, and being a new parent. It was a time of expectation, of hope, of excitement, and then Allah chose a different path for you, as you've mentioned in the book. Was that the catalyst? Then you took that process of grief in your journaling, and that was that the catalyst to then motivate yourself to pour your heart and soul into this book as well?
She definitely was. It was like a very difficult time for us as a family, but together, like joining our strength and realizing that we have to see the best in it. We have to see that he is in a much better place. And for us, we also have to take lesson from what's happened and we have to use it to be a means of positivity for ourselves, for each other, and for everyone else. So that really inspired me to want to make a positive change after that experience.
Yes, and you know what? I feel many going through a grief, and then uh, it becomes a profound grief, and many get a sort of they find it difficult to move on. And Alhamdulillah, you use this very, very difficult, as you've said, not only for yourself, but for the family involved, uh, to positivity. So you use this example for positivity. And then when I thought of it, I said, how profound that this book would now be, Alhamdulillah, Sadqa Jariyah for your mahrum baby, inshallah, who, inshallah, we make dua, you will connect and be together, inshallah, in Jannah. So, a legacy that you've took your grief and you've developed it into something positive for yourself, for your family, as well as a form of sadka jariyah. So for me, you know, I just feel that this is so profound that you've done something like this. And for me, it's motivation for people currently. It's COVID, it was pandemic time. People have lost many loved ones, but maybe a form of journaling or some form of positive form of sadka jariyah to leave a legacy for the marhum.
Alhamdulillah, that was my goal, and inshallah, I hope it manages to be everything that I hoped it would be.
So yes, and I love that because chapter two, I mean, and for me, the book is so comprehensive, and that's why I said earlier you're newly graduate, because Alhamdulillah, the wisdom you've put inside, the thought you've put out, the advice you put up is, beyond your years, Umar, in terms of the advice, because somebody who's majored in psychology, I've read the book, and it's caused me to reflect and give me direction, Alhamdulillah. So when I was reading it, I had to remind myself, what, this is a young Muslimah, but yet her advice is so profound, and it speaks to your character as well, because chapter one starts with importance of intention, and Alhamdulillah, everything in our life is with intention, because our actions essentially will be judged by our intention, and whatever we do in life, intention and niyyah is a mark of a believer. So it should start there, and that's where your chapter one begins and commences.
Gee, it does. And Alhamdulillah, many of the classic hadith books like Imam and Nawawi's 40 hadith also begin with that hadith about actions are judged by intention. So I was hoping that I want to start in the same way as that great classic book and inshallah draw on many of the hadiths in that book as the basis for many of the other chapters that come later on.
And then, like you say, that was your goal for the book, and then chapter two, you delve right into it, because you say, right, starting off, once you have your niyyah, you need to start off with goals in mind. And I love what your goals are, because many of us, when we think of goals, we think of it in a sense of materialistic goals, or goals that I need uh, to aspire to, so that I can become somebody, or aspire to something that will give me status or recognition in society. And I love what you say in the book. Think about who you want to be remembered as. And for me, that is so profound. A person who only spoke good, a kind person, a successful person, a charitable person, and love towards that. Ain't to be a person whose absence is felt because their presence had such a profound impact. And this is what I mean, Alhamdulillah, mashallah, that this book is so full of wisdom and guidance.
Jazakallah khair. I'm so glad that you enjoyed that particular excerpt of it. And inshallah, I hope as many people will also benefit from what is in the book. When it comes to our goals, often like we think of them in a very one sided light, and we don't realize that we can't have goals that end when this world ends, because this is not all that there is. So I just wanted to shed some light and obviously remind myself, firstly, before anyone else, that there's so much more that we can aspire towards. There's so many aspects and there's so many dimensions that we should be striving for excellence in. And we shouldn't limit ourselves to having goals that are worldly. We shouldn't limit ourselves to having goals that stop with our careers. And we really should expand our boundaries and try to work for that which is everlasting rather than only what is in this world.
Yes, and for me it was comprehensive because then after your goals, before you need to reach them, I love what you said about garbage in and garbage out. Uh, because it's refreshing. It's not a solemn book. You're using language that is everyday language, some of your terminology there, and you're saying garbage in, garbage out. And yes, I mean, before we get onto the road, we need to take out what is not necessary or what is holding us back. And then I and then and your garbage in, garbage out, it's expanding the gray matter. And for me, gray matter is important, and you focused on that idea of the gray area.
Gee, so what we often don't realize is how insidious the process of falling into wrong is. So I use the example in the book where it describes a frog, and there's two circumstances. The first one is where you take a frog and you throw it into boiling water, and it realizes that this is a threat, so it jumps out. Whereas on the other side, you have a frog in cool water and you heat the water up gradually until the
Mhm.
point where it's boiling and it doesn't even realize what has happened to it. So likewise with us, Shaitan is not going to come to us with an idea to be off the path of our deen directly, because we would immediately recognize it and stay away from it, but rather he comes to us with very insidious things. It's not the black and the white. He comes to us with different areas, which are the gray area, and tells us to justify the wrong that we do. And he tells us that it's okay, it's just a little wrong. And before we know it, it's one step leading to the next, leading to the next, and we are in the area that is clearly wrong. And this happens all the time in the influence that is around us. There's so much that we don't realize is input to all our senses because we're exposed to so much via media, via social media. We don't realize the subtle way in which we are being shown things that are wrong in a way that we think they are not wrong anymore. And that's leading to a lot of immorality, and it leads to so many sins that we don't even realize we might be falling into. So I really wanted to shed light on that because of how easy it can be to fall prey to Shaitan and his traps.
Yes, that is so. Let me tell you something. As I mentioned in my introduction, Living with Intent was my companion for the weekend. Alhamdulillah, and you can see my voice. I feel I have some direction and some intent. Slowly, slowly, I'm following some guidelines here, Samira. Uh, and my So I was with my dad on Sunday afternoon, and I think my love for reading, and being this avid reader, I have to acknowledge him, and credit goes to him because he always encouraged me from the daily newspapers to whatever I read. So he got hold of this, and my dad is in his 70s, and then as we're leaving, he said, please, can I take this book home? I love a particular type of books, and I'm so interested and I'm enjoying this book. So I just want to tell you this book is for young and old. Even a 70-year-old person, as my dad, was so encouraged with the book that he actually wanted to take it home. And I told him, as soon as I'm done, I'm going to share the copy with him as well. So just testament that it's not only for those that are in the early years or in the midst of their life, but even our senior citizens uh, took to this book.
Jazakallah so much, and Jazakallah to your dad. I'm so grateful for the positive feedback. That was my goal when I was writing the book. I didn't want it to be limited to certain people only. I wanted it to be for the young, for the old, for males, for females, for people in all walks of life. And I'm really glad that it's having that impact. Alhamdulillah.
And just for everybody, please. I mean, you cover mental health extensively here. You've covered neglecting of mental health, anxiety as well. Um, you discuss what is depression, and also besides what is depression, you explain what does it look like, what is bipolar mood disorder, as well as personality disorders. But more importantly, uh, we need to break the silence, and that's exactly what you cover, breaking the silence as well here, amongst other things. And then also you have a chapter on contentment, confidence. So Alhamdulillah, consistency with children, and for me that is a very, very essential thing, and ultimately a change in the mindset, because I always tell people, and especially those that come to me for advice, for counsel and help, and I tell them I cannot go and change people for you. And I cannot go around changing your relationships or changing people. But what I can do is I can help you become a better version of yourself and change your mindset. Because if you change your mindset, your relationship will change. Your perceptions and perspectives on issues, situations, and people will change, and hence you will find a change. But it was because you were the instrument of change, not because other people changed. And I think that's a message as well that you speak to in this book.
Yeah, definitely. And it also ties in with the chapter on accountability because it's so easy for us to blame everyone else for everything all the time. But we don't realize that if we just take accountability for our actions, it's so empowering because then we'll realize that there's so much that's in my control. There's so much that I can empower myself with. There's so much that I can change just by choosing to be accountable for all that I do. And accountability always sounds like, you're being accountable for the bad things that you've done. And that's definitely true. But we must also own the good that we do. We often downplay our own talents. We often downplay our own strengths. We often don't use our previous successes as a springboard for future successes. So accountability is on both sides. On one side, we need to be accountable for the way that we can prevent the negativity around us and the ways that we could change what happens to us. And on the other hand, we must also own our talents and own our strength and make sure we use them to their maximum potential.
Uh, Umar, this has been exciting. We wish you all well for with the book, and no doubt whoever reads it, it is going to assist them. It is going to be a guide, and definitely recommended read. How can we obtain a copy if all our listeners are listening and would like a copy with of Loving with Intent? How do we contact? Where can we obtain a copy?
So at the moment, I've been taking orders for books via email and via WhatsApp. So I can share the number or the email address if I can.
Email address would be good. So can you just share an email address with us?
Okay, so it will be ummumarbooks@gmail.com. It's UMMUMAR books at gmail.com.
A very,
Should
very
I just repeat
easy
that?
email to remember, umumarbooks@gmail.com. So please, this is where you can make arrangements to get a copy of a good read. Alhamdulillah, prefer its write-ups have been shared by Maulana Haider Dorat as well. It's been shared by a few. I'm just reading here. Maulana Kari Yusuf Osman has sent feedback as well on on the book here as well. So Alhamdulillah, good reviews. But more than the reviews, excellent book from somebody who's in the field, uh, having read it, and also it's caused me or encouraged me to look at things differently and reflect upon the way I want to go in terms of being a better person, a better version of ourselves, and also to reach our ultimate goal, which is to attain general firdaus. And yes, this book is full of directions, inspiration, guidance, and counsel in terms of how to get there. And shukran for coming on and sharing your insights for us in speaking to us about the book, and we wish you every success with the book, inshallah. I think we lost Umaria, uh, but please do contact her at ummarbooks@gmail.com if you'd like a copy. And with that, I'd like to say shukran for the privilege of your company and being with us for mid morning on Salam Media with me, your host, Mariam Mia. And my apologies for the technical difficulties earlier on. Inshallah, we will connect next Monday from 11 to 1. Peace and blessings to all.